Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Isaiah, I think. That's a long story. And today I don't want to talk about real life because that's stressful. So I'm just going to talk about what's going on the screen. I finally got to the point where I could work on my mural on my Minecraft house. So I want to explain this a bit because this has been months in the making. So in Minecraft, I'm on the asexual SMP server. I'm one of the admins, and when I first joined, I decided what I was going to do to cope with the fact that I really wanted a house was to build a Philly row home in Minecraft. And I did so. Everyone jokes around and says that it's huge, but I try to make it proportional to just a bog standard West Philly row home. It's 3 floors and a basement, and it's in the middle of nowhere. It was originally going to be like a sort of Philly hobbit hole of sorts because row homes, if you're not familiar, they're houses that exist attached to each other. They're very common in cities. In Philly, they're called row homes. Most of the time, they're called townhouses. And West Philly is especially known for this certain type of row home that was built in the 1920s, where it's about 14 feet wide. You get this big, huge porch. A lot of them have bay windows, and they're really just gorgeous old houses. I fell in love with them with my technically my second visit ever to Philly because the first visit was when I was 12 for a church thing. But I got to stay in one of the older row homes that was like 4 stories high. It had a lot of the old banister and the woodwork everywhere. The formal dining room, they hadn't knocked out all the walls, so everything was still enclosed and tight and snug. The formal dining room was kind of like a hodgepodge of printing things and bikes and art and all of that stuff. And there was like 3 families living in there because, living anywhere these days is expensive. And that is part of why I chose to have an apartment in West Philly as opposed to anywhere else, and part of why we're looking at houses in West Philly currently. I want those porches, I want those high ceilings, I want the old trim work, the plaster and lath. I love everything about the traditional row home. And Breyer laughs at me because all the open concept houses from people buying up these older homes and flipping them. They make them all gray. They knock out the walls, and they're like, "It's open concept. Isn't it pretty?" And I'm like, "No, you just made it a shoebox." So, like I said, I started building this project when I was just dealing with the frustration of not being able to have a house, and it's still very much in progress. It's got a lot of inside work to do and a lot of outside work left as well, because despite how finished one side of the area is, I just have a lot to do. But um so I knew I wanted to do this mural because Philadelphia has a lot of murals. There's actually this whole um organization attached to the city that handles the murals because I've looked into it in case we ever bought a house that had a mural on it. And I knew from the beginning I wanted to do like the Philly skyline because it's a Philly row home. People don't really get that. They're mostly younger people on the Ace server, so that's understandable. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. One side is going to have the city skyline on it, the other side will be buried into the earth. And then I went and started the flattening project for months because everything was too stressful. And now everything is still stressful, but I want to get the house done so I can have one finished project before I start on Fortinbras properly. So what I ended up doing was I took a photo or a screenshot of the Minecraft wall to try and figure out what I was going to do. And you saw all of this. I actually sketched out, I traced over the skyline, I simplified it, I did my best to try and make it like actual Minecraft block size, and failed utterly at that. And then I spent a couple hours gathering enough resources to actually build it. I ended up going with the orange, blue, and brown because the orange and blue were especially important to me. It's one of my favorite color combinations. And the brown just kind of kept everything real warm and muted. And that was important to me as well because I'm actually leaving the nether brick exposed, and I'm having a couple of pieces poke over the roof line of the build because there are actually some murals in Philly where they have added pieces to the house so the mural can extend above the roof line. And I always find that to be really, really cool. And then the actual building process is really straightforward. Um, I could honestly talk about the Philly houses forever. Like the one we're looking at purchasing it was made in 1925. There's a lot of stuff about the basements, and like I'm from Alabama. They didn't have that many basements in Alabama. So all of that is very new to me. And um sorry, my cat is walking around acting like she owns the place. So some of the difficulties I had translating the sketch over to the actual build was I wasn't being very precise as much as I want it to be with the actual sketch. So like right here especially I was having some issues with the blue line, the blue T that's there because I think some of the smaller buildings that were in front of the skyline that I was trying to keep were very confusing, especially when you're flattening them out into a 2D pixel art thing. And it just didn't make any sense to me. I can see myself struggling because I'm watching the playback right now. But and I'm also really disappointed because the clock tower at City Hall got completely hidden by the dirt. Like when the little image pops up, there is a brown building with a little yellow dot. That's actually City Hall. And I'm not a true Philadelphian yet. I don't know the names of all the buildings just yet. I do love at night the taller skyscrapers have lights on them that will change. There's one skyscraper that has like rolling text and it's always very distracting when I'm going home because the way I usually go home is to avoid the museum, which is the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And if you don't know what that is, if you've ever seen the scene where Rocky runs up the steps and he's like fist pumping into the air, that was actually at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. It's also one of my favorite places in the city. There's a few other like the Mutter Museum, which is a museum that has like a bunch of old preserved bodies and skulls, and it's just like about medical stuff. They still have an influenza uh, exhibition there that I saw when I visited in 2019. No, when I visited in 2020. It's still up, I guess, because COVID made everything slow down a lot. Last time we visited, they also had a pregnancy exhibition up, and we completely avoided that because that was extremely dysphoria inducing. Oh, yeah. I have a lot of work left. I have to finish lighting up the area so it's safe because outside of this mural, I'm trying to build up a sort of secret garden vibe. And I was actually inspired to do this by another one of the admins. Her name is Ellie. And when I first joined, Ellie had created this little like secret nook where there was a bunch of axolotls and flowers and all of that stuff. And it's really, really pretty. And I was like, I want to do that, but bigger. So I'm doing that, but bigger. And then I have so many beehives that I had to start creating trees, which is why there's the stripped acacia logs. They still need leaves, but I only have one tree finished. And I'm building a hedge around the whole thing so people know very clearly where my build ends. I also have an aquarium in my cave that you're not going to see right now because I didn't take any footage of it. Eventually, when this build is finished, I will do just a full walking tour and explaining every bit of it. But the cave with the aquarium is because another one of the admins, D, he low key snubbed me for an aquarium build, and I was like, fine, I'll make my own aquarium, and it'll be cool. It'll be better than your aquarium. I do a lot of things out of spite. Um, but we're nearing the end, so this isn't a very awesome video. I realize I'm just gushing about houses the entire time, but if you do like my content, tomorrow is Thanksgiving. We're going to have a very fun video. I'm dragging Briar into it, as unhappy as they are about the whole thing, and they will be talking with me about my planned. Let's just say that it's a good thing I'm not working, because the video is going to take me all day to put together, but it's worth it. I'm excited about it. And Friday I'm doing another sex ed video, this time about contraception and ways to protect yourself both from having unwanted pregnancies and from STDs. So that will be very important, because there's some things that I looked into that I wasn't overly familiar with at the time. So stay in tune about that. Probably going to have some more gender stuff on Saturday. And house update. I mean, there's not a lot, right, Ned? She's just looking at me like, what? We talked with someone. They've estimated what we're probably going to need to do for closing. We're about $1,000 short currently. Exciting. So, yeah. Fingers crossed that the house doesn't sell before we can get to it. And y'all stay hydrated. I've got water to drink. My sleeping medication is making it very hard for me to stay hydrated. I wake up with a dry mouth. And yeah, I mean, that's about it. With 30 seconds left, so stay hydrated. Have a good day tomorrow. Have a happy Thanksgiving if you're American. If you're not American, you can ignore that. Just have a good day. Try to stay safe as the winter months approach, us northern hemisphere folks, and I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. Bye bye.